On my way home that night, I hit a woman. The good news? She was absolutely stunning. The bad news? She was driving a limited edition Bentley. When life decides to screw you over, even a glass of water will choke you. That morning, the company had released its latest performance rankings. Guess who landed dead last? Yep. No bonus for me this month. Great start to the day. And by nightfall, just when I thought things couldn't possibly get worse, I pulled into my apartment's underground garage, made a turn. Bam! Head-on collision. 20 miles an hour, straight into another car. Headlights to headlights. Both sets shattered on impact. For a second, I just sat there, dazed, like my brain short-circuited. I couldn't even process what I was looking at. The other car looked expensive. That's about all I registered at first. But the moment I stepped out, my heart skipped a beat. No exaggeration. It actually skipped. A giant bee gleamed from the grille like it knew exactly how poor I was. Even someone like me, scraping by, perpetually broke, recognized that emblem. Bentley. I glanced down at the lane markings. Fuck. I had crossed into the wrong lane. My mind scrambled for something, anything, to grab onto, and all I could think of was my third-party liability insurance. If I remembered right, it covered up to $300,000. Hopefully. Barely. Maybe enough to cover the damage. The car door swung open. First thing I saw. A pair of sleek, razor-sharp stilettos hitting the concrete. Then came the legs, miles long, smooth, the kind of legs that made entire advertising campaigns. Her waist? Tiny. Like, literally A4 paper thin. But her chest, full. Easily a 34D. Elegant swan neck. Porcelain skin. A flawless oval face that looked airbrushed by nature itself. And then, those almond-shaped eyes. Wide, sharp, and furrowed in irritation as they locked on mine. The second our eyes met, I wanted to slap myself. What the hell are you doing checking her out right now? You're at fault. Her voice was cool and flat, like a verdict handed down from a judge who'd seen it all and didn't give a damn anymore. I tried not to visibly flinch. Muttered, "Don't the cops usually make that call?" I swallowed hard, feeling like a kid caught shoplifting. Still, some deeply buried scrap of courage stirred. I asked, "Do you have any idea how much it'll cost to fix?" She looked at the wreckage, then back at me. Her tone never changed. No idea. A few $100,000, maybe. It was sheer male pride that kept my knees from buckling. I didn't even dare ask if my $300,000 insurance policy would cover it. Barely breathing, I croaked, "Right. Let's call the police. Get insurance involved." She frowned, pulling out her phone, fingers ready to dial. But before she could press the screen, it rang. From where I stood, I could faintly hear the voice on the other end of her call, frantic, insistent, like someone urgently needing her somewhere else. "I got it, I'm coming now," she said briskly, ending the call. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a business card, holding it out to me like she was done with the whole thing. "I've got somewhere to be. Take your photos, call your insurance. It's your fault anyway. Handle it with the claims center tomorrow." She turned as if to leave. Hell no. I wasn't letting this slide that easily. I'd seen her wheels nudge the line too. There was still a sliver of hope, just maybe, if they split the blame even a little, my $300,000 liability cap might actually cover the damage. "Wait a sec. I don't think we should just skip the police report," I said, trying to sound reasonable and mildly pathetic. "I mean, it's raining, right? The garage floor's basically an ice rink, like someone waxed the whole damn place. This could involve building management too, you know? And your car, I mean, it's really expensive, shouldn't we? She cut me off mid-ramble. You were driving in the wrong lane. Completely. It's crystal clear. I opened my mouth again, still clinging to some desperate hope, but then a chime came from her phone. A new message. She glanced down. Her brows twitched. And then, a sharp, involuntary click of the tongue. Like something had officially pissed her off. She glanced at her car, then back at me, the rambling, borderline hysterical man-child in front of her. Fine. It's all my fault. Happy now? She tossed the words out like a bone to a barking dog. I've got things to do. I'm leaving. I just stood there, mouth open, jaw on the verge of unhinging. Was this it? Was this what people meant by rich and reckless? Because right now, she didn't just look like someone who could buy and crash Bentleys for fun, she acted like it. And if I had half a brain, I knew better than to try and stop her now. She was about to walk away taking all the blame. Stopping her would make me the crazy one. Tears of relief were practically welling in my eyes. No, hold them in. Cry at home, idiot. Right now, my last 3 remaining brain cells told me to seal the deal. She was in a rush, and people in a rush don't have time to lawyer up. Get it in writing. I scrambled into my car, grabbed a pen and notepad, scribbled down both license plates and a quick statement: the other party accepts full liability. By the time I rushed back, she was already in the driver's seat, engine rumbling, one stiletto tapping the gas. I slapped on my most harmless, pitiful, insurance adjuster face and held out the page. Just something for my insurance to have on file, you know, paperwork and all that, I said, as if this wasn't the most important document of my financial life. I couldn't exactly say, I'm afraid you'll change your mind when you've calmed down, so I just stood there, all smiles, like a puppy trying to sell car insurance. She glanced down, eyes barely scanning the page. Clearly, she was in a rush. And just like that, she scrawled her name in one quick, elegant motion. Just as she was about to hand the paper back to me, her hand paused mid-air. Fingers froze. She glanced down at her dashboard. Then, she opened the door and stepped out. My heart dropped like a stone. Shit. Something's changed. She strode toward the front of her car, brows furrowed, gaze sharp. That's when I saw it too. It wasn't just the headlights that had been obliterated. Her front tire was deflating. Fast. The impact had skewered it just enough to make it collapse. My rust bucket bumper had landed a direct hit. Sweat beaded on my forehead. I looked at my old car, this beat-up warrior that had stuck with me for 8 years. Now, staring at its scraped-up, heroic little grille, I felt like crying. Really? You had to go toe-to-toe with a Bentley? You just couldn't lose gracefully? She turned to me, voice cool but with a hint of urgency. My car can't move now. Yours still runs? It was a question. But somehow, it sounded like a command. Yeah? I think so, I stammered. She checked her watch. I've got somewhere I need to be. It's raining, I can't get a cab right now. Take me to Straight Line Hotel, and I'll give you the signed statement. Could I say no? No. No, I could not. Even if my wheels fell off halfway there, I'd push that car with my bare hands to get it done. I rushed back to clean up the inside, shoved empty water bottles and receipts under the seat, and flung open the back door. No problem at all. Sorry the ride's not great, appreciate you bearing with me. She stepped closer, took one glance inside. And hesitated. Clearly, the cramped back seat wasn't worthy of those runway model legs. Without a word, she circled to the front passenger side. I'll sit up front, she said simply. Say what you want. But that old Buick of mine? Built like a tank. It had just knocked a Bentley out cold and was still growling like it wanted another round. And me? I was driving like a man on a mission, fast, focused, deeply motivated by guilt and desperation. 10 minutes flat. That's all it took to get her to the Straight Line Hotel. As we pulled up to the curb, I spotted a young woman in business attire pacing near the entrance, clutching a bulky briefcase like it was full of state secrets. She kept glancing at her watch, fidgeting, clearly on edge. My passenger pointed toward her. That's her. I eased the Buick, headlights still smashed to hell, into a perfect stop right in front of the girl. And in that moment, I saw it. The girl's eyes widened in disbelief. As the passenger door swung open and her boss stepped out, elegant, composed, stepping out of a wrecked Buick like it was a damn Rolls. The assistant practically short-circuited. "Ms. Whitmore?" "You?" she stammered, clearly trying to process the mental image. Later, the woman snapped, brushing past her. "Is Ryan here?" The girl tore her gaze away from my car. "He just called in sick. Said he felt awful, went straight to the hospital. He's not coming." "What?" Ariana Whitmore's voice sharpened like a blade. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? Can anyone else from design step in?" I just found out," the girl said, shrinking a little. "He'd already left home, but I guess he turned around and went straight to the ER. There's no one else who can make it in time." Her voice trailed off into a guilty whisper. "And me?" While they were busy unraveling, I finally had a second to glance down at the business card she'd handed me earlier. Ariana Whitmore. President, Helios Development Group. My stomach flipped. Oh God. I hit a CEO. Turns out, I hadn't just crashed into some random rich woman. I hit the CEO of one of the biggest local companies. Helios Development. Everyone in the city knew the name. So, yeah, if I ever considered switching jobs in the future, I'd better make damn sure it's not to her company. I'd probably get rejected before my resume even loaded. "Ms. Whitmore, so, just the two of us going in?" her assistant asked. Her tone was polite, but her eyes flicked toward me, clearly wondering who the hell I was. One thing was obvious, she didn't think I was an Uber driver. Not in this disaster of a car. Truth was, I hadn't left because I still didn't have the signed statement in hand. That precious liability document was still clenched in Ariana's fingers. I didn't want to interrupt, but I also couldn't let her just walk off. So I finally mustered the nerve. Ms. Whitmore, sorry to bother you but, the paper, the agreement thing." She turned and looked at me, really looked. I was still in my office suit, hadn't had time to change. Her gaze swept over me, and for some reason I instinctively straightened my back. God knows why, maybe because she looked like someone who could fire me from a job I didn't even have. Then, without a word, Ariana leaned in and slipped the signed statement through my window. "Here's your paperwork," she said. "Now, do me one more favor. Come inside with us. We need a third body for headcount. You in?" Relief washed over me like a warm shower. I had the paper. I wasn't going bankrupt. With that, I suddenly found my backbone again. "Of course," I said, patting my chest like I was about to take a bullet. "Just let me park the car." "No need. Give it to the valet. Our guests are waiting. Let's go." I handed my battle-scarred Buick off to a valet who looked like he'd just been assigned to tow a junkyard relic. Then I fell in step behind Ariana and her assistant, walking into the hotel like I actually belonged there. The whole walk to the hotel's second floor, the assistant kept sneaking glances back at me, like she couldn't figure out if I was Ariana's bodyguard, her boyfriend, or maybe just a very confused valet who wandered inside by mistake. Ariana must have picked up on it. She turned to me and asked, "What's your name?" "Noah," I replied, a little too quickly. That only seemed to deepen the assistant's confusion. Ariana didn't elaborate, she just moved on, voice steady and low as we neared the private suite. "We're meeting with a globally known investor," she said. "He's considering funding a major local project. We've already presented the proposal, tonight is just for closing the decision. He's only in town for one night." She kept her pace, barely breaking stride. "Our design director was supposed to be here too, but he had a last-minute emergency. So you'll be filling in, for optics. Just sit, stay quiet, look professional. That's all. Got it?" She laid it out calmly, as if asking someone to carry her purse, not impersonate a department head. "Got it. Understood." "Mission accepted," I nodded, keeping my voice firm. Come on, this woman had just wiped away what could have been a six-figure disaster with a single sentence. Pretending to be a design executive for one dinner? I'd do it in a heartbeat. Honestly, I'd seen this kind of thing before. Back at our real estate office, people hired fake clients all the time. $30 a head, smile, nod, act rich. This was basically that, just with higher stakes and fancier suits. Ariana and I stepped into a private suite on the second floor. At the head of the room sat a man in his late 50s, maybe early 60s. Snow-white hair, linen mandarin jacket, calm like a coiled snake. The kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice, he just looked at you, and you felt the pressure. You could have told me he was an international investor. Or a mafia boss. And honestly, I would have believed either. The seat to the old man's right was left empty. To his left sat two men in sharp business suits, one looked to be in his 40s, polished and composed. But the seat closest to the investor? Occupied by someone who looked much younger, late 20s maybe, clearly cut from the same ambitious cloth as Ariana. A golden boy. All confidence and high-performance cologne. The kind of guy who walked into boardrooms like he owned them. "Mr. Whitaker," Ariana greeted, her tone professional and pleasant. But I saw it. The flicker in her eyes when she noticed the two men seated beside him. "Ah, Ms. Whitmore, good, good, come in, have a seat," the old man said warmly, gesturing to the open chair at his right. His voice had that affable, southern-tinged charm, but underneath it, you could hear steel. Then, catching her glance, he offered clarification. "These gentlemen are Mr. Derek Langford from Suncrest Group and his assistant. As you know, I'm choosing just one partner for the Atlas City Center project, and given my limited time here, I figured I'd hear from both parties tonight. Hope you don't mind, Ms. Whitmore." Atlas City Center. The name hit me like a flashbulb. That was the project. The one plastered across every real estate and investment headline in town. A towering, high-end commercial landmark set to redefine the skyline. And here I was, front row for its conception. All because my busted car couldn't keep its bumper to itself. Ariana didn't miss a beat. She flashed a diplomatic smile, sliding into her seat with practiced grace. "Of course not," she said smoothly. "Mr. Langford and I go way back. Though let's be clear, business is war, and I don't intend to go easy on him." She said it with a light laugh, but there was an edge in her voice that made everyone sit up a little straighter. This wasn't just a dinner. This was the battlefield. Everyone let out a polite, almost synchronized laugh, one of those tight corporate chuckles where no one's really amused, just keeping up appearances. Except Derek, the younger one. His eyes lingered on Ariana with a look I couldn't quite place. Not exactly hostile. Not quite friendly either. Then his gaze slid to me. He gave me a once-over, eyebrows lifting ever so slightly, like he was trying to figure out which category I belonged to, junior exec, bodyguard, date? "Ms. Whitmore, your background's in finance, isn't it?" he asked casually. "Design's not exactly your lane. Weren't you supposed to bring your design director, Ryan? Who's this gentleman? He looks," unfamiliar. There it was. The gloves hadn't even come off yet, and the scent of gunpowder was already in the air. And of course, I was the one he chose to shoot first. I could feel my face tighten slightly, instinctively bracing myself, but I remembered Ariana's instructions. Stay silent. Stay still. And she? She didn't flinch. Partnerships are about profit, Mr. Langford, she replied smoothly. And finance is my lane, profits are my strong suit. As for Ryan, he had an emergency. We're a large firm. He's not the only design lead we have. She gestured toward me without even missing a beat. This is Noah. If you have time to worry about my team structure, maybe you should focus a little more on your own proposal. Direct hit. A quiet murmur of acknowledgement passed through the table. Even Mr. Whitaker seemed mildly entertained. Round 1, draw. He gave us a warm, grandfatherly smile, eyes twinkling with interest, and gestured for everyone to take their seats. Ariana's assistant stepped forward like a well-trained pit crew, pulling 4 identical booklets from her briefcase. She placed one in front of Mr. Whitaker, one in front of Derek, one in front of Ariana. And slid the last copy in front of me. Suddenly, I was no longer just a warm body for headcount. I had a seat. And now, I had homework. Once the formal discussion began, the tone in the room shifted entirely. For over an hour, both sides laid out their proposals, each pitching the strengths of their vision for Atlas City Center. I sat there, nodding occasionally, feigning intense focus, flipping through the design booklet in front of me like I actually knew what I was looking at. Truth? Apart from the pretty 3D renders and a vague idea of what the building would look like, the rest may as well have been written in ancient Greek. Still, I kept my mouth shut. That part, at least, I was doing perfectly. Eventually, the conversation slowed. The air in the room seemed heavier, the momentum narrowing toward a decision. Mr. Whitaker sipped his tea, then set the cup down deliberately. I brought you both here tonight for a reason, he began, voice even, measured. Time is short, and I don't believe in dragging things out. I'd like to speak plainly, hope no one minds. Ariana and Derek locked eyes for a brief second. The tension between them was so thick it practically raised the temperature in the room. Mr. Langford's proposal has its merits, Whitaker continued. Lower cost, faster return window, pragmatic and efficient. But also, conventional. It doesn't quite excite. Derek's jaw tensed. His gaze, calm moments ago, now hardened. Ms. Whitmore's proposal, on the other hand, far more ambitious. Visually striking. If it works, it'll redefine the project's identity. Might even become iconic. But the budget's higher. Riskier. He leaned back, giving both sides a moment to absorb that. If I had to lean one way, he glanced at Ariana, I'm inclined toward Ms. Whitmore's vision. But the costs will need to come down. Substantially. Derek's expression darkened. He didn't look at Mr. Whitaker. He stared straight at Ariana, eyes cold, almost hostile. But Ariana? She lit up, like she'd just been handed the golden ticket. Understood, she said with poise. That won't be a problem. I'll speak to our design team, we'll bring the numbers into alignment. She said it like it was already done. And in that moment, I realized. The real game had just begun. When I first saw the total investment figures for the project, I nearly whistled out loud. No wonder Ariana had rushed over right after the crash, and let me off the hook for the damages without blinking. Compared to this deal, a few $100,000 really was pocket change. As far as my role went, the mission had been a success. We survived. She won. Now all that was left was to bow out gracefully, maybe even score a thank you tip if she was in a generous mood. But just as I was about to make my quiet exit, a voice cut through the room, sharp and cold. Derek. Oh. You'll check with the design team, he said, mock surprise dripping from every word. Isn't the design director sitting right here? His eyes locked on mine. Predatory. Calculating. Why don't we hear his plan now, he added smoothly. Surely he has something useful to say. Otherwise, what's the point of bringing him at all? Then he turned to Mr. Whittaker. Wouldn't you agree, sir? Whittaker tilted his head thoughtfully, then nodded. Fair enough. Let's hear it, then. Suddenly, every pair of eyes in the room zeroed in on me. My skin prickled. I could feel the blood drain from Ariana's face beside me. Derek had done it, boxed me in, cornered me like a trapped animal. You petty, smug little bastard. I swear, if this were a movie, Derek would be the first guy taken out halfway through the plot. Audience would cheer. No question. But there was no director to yell, cut. No stunt double to step in. And if I blew this, if I tanked Ariana's pitch right here, she'd go down with me. And tomorrow, my already disastrous life might officially flatline. Time to go off script. I cleared my throat, sat up straight, and slowly flipped open the proposal packet in front of me. Like a man who meant to be here all along. Apologies, everyone, I began, my tone steady but humble. I'm still fairly new to this project, so I may not be familiar with every detail. If I misspeak, I ask for your patience. I shot Ariana a quick glance, a wink, really, just a signal, I've got this. Don't panic. We at Helios Development have poured ourselves into Atlas City Center from day one. Our design team has worked day and night to deliver a proposal worthy of the city's future, something visionary, something world-class. I paused just enough to sound intentional. That said, I believe we've been so focused on ambition, that we may have fallen into some early assumptions. I turned a page in the binder, tapped on a section I'd only half understood 2 hours ago, but now spoke to like it was my thesis. For instance, we've insisted on using only the highest-end materials. Our exterior facade is currently specced with Nero Portoro marble, gorgeous, yes, but one of the most expensive stones in the world. While that raises the project's premium perception, it also pushes costs well beyond initial projections. I let that sink in. Based on Mr. Whittaker's feedback, I'd propose switching to locally sourced midnight gold granite. Visually, it offers a comparable effect, but at nearly half the cost. As for the interior plaza facades, we could even consider Sierra gold granite. It significantly reduces material spend, and, bonus, it brightens the space. More reflective surfaces, more natural light. Visually wider. Emotionally warmer. Silence. Not awkward. Not skeptical. Just, surprised. And then. Clap. 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 Ariana's hands broke the pause with crisp, confident applause. Really? Now you clap? I nearly burst out laughing. That applause came just in time to save me, because I was seconds away from running out of every half-baked architectural term I knew. 1 second later and I'd have been rambling about feng shui and vibes. But Mr. Whittaker, ever the fox in linen, smiled like I was his long-lost protégé. Well, well, he said warmly, almost fatherly. Impressive. Today's young professionals really are full of surprises. Ms. Whitmore, seems your team's just as sharp as you are. I look forward to working together. Ariana rose to her feet, all confidence and power, and shook his hand with firm, elegant precision. Her eyes, large, bright, unmistakably triumphant, cut a death glare across the table at Derek. And Derek? Let's just say. He didn't take it well. His face went gray. His smile strained. And then he made the amateur mistake of turning that frustration toward me. A glare. An are you kidding me kind of look. Like I was some lucky amateur who had somehow crashed his deal. What he didn't know was, I wasn't the bottom of the food chain tonight. I was the chaos he didn't see coming. And if he wanted a stare down? Buddy, I went to a public high school. Staring contests were basically a varsity sport. I met his eyes and didn't flinch. Not an inch. Held it just long enough to remind him, you blink, you lose. Ariana strode out of the room with barely restrained glee, trying her absolute best not to laugh. And me? I followed right behind her, head high, chest out. Mission complete. No applause necessary. Just deep, quiet glory. Noah, you were amazing back there, seriously, that was badass. We had just stepped off the elevator when the girl, Ariana's assistant, turned to me with bright eyes and bubbling excitement. I'm Piper, she said. Ms. Whitmore's assistant. Are you, like, joining the company soon? I laughed, rubbing the back of my neck. Ah, nothing fancy. Just some light professional grade nonsense. Anybody can bluff if they look serious enough doing it. Ariana had slowed down behind us, finally letting her CEO mask slip. For the first time tonight, she looked less like an ice queen and more like an actual human being. You actually knew what you were talking about? She asked, head tilted with curiosity. I shrugged, suddenly sheepish. Not really. I sell houses. Been doing it a few years. You sit through enough team meetings, you pick up a thing or two, half truth, half instinct. Honestly, I was just winging it. She blinked once, then smiled, just a hint. Well, you winged it like a pro. You really helped me out tonight. Then she turned to Piper. Tomorrow, have the driver take care of the car paperwork. And make sure he gets a bonus for today. He earned it. And just like that, faith in humanity, restored. Respect, acknowledgement, a little extra cash. Isn't that what every working stiff dreams of? I exhaled for real this time. Heart back in my chest. Mind no longer sprinting a marathon. Tonight had been a damn roller coaster, complete with whiplash turns and a final, glorious loop. And if I played my cards right, this story would live on for at least 3 years at every party I attended. Just as we reached the front entrance, I was riding high. Victory buzzed in my chest. I turned to Ariana with a casual smile. It's still raining. Want me to give you a ride home? She glanced toward the curb. Right at my car. My poor Buick sat there like a one-eyed pirate ship, headlights mismatched and scarred from battle. She gave a polite but unmistakable shake of the head. No need. I'm not in a rush anymore. I'll call a car. Oof. Right. Maybe I had overestimated myself for a second. I nodded and waved for the valet to bring my car around, while Piper stepped aside to order Ariana a ride. Just then, from behind us, a voice rang out. The one voice I had hoped never to hear again tonight. Derek. He strutted over with his usual too-polished charm, every inch the walking Instagram algorithm. The guy was tall, slick, and textbook devastating to women under 35. Hey, Ariana, he said smoothly. Been a while. You're looking better than ever. God, I thought, is this a corporate drama or a daytime soap opera? Ariana didn't miss a beat. You too, she replied sweetly. Still a walking cliché, I see. That got me. I couldn't help it, let out a lope of laughter. Derek shot me a glare like he wanted to rip the steering wheel out of my car and throw it at my face. But he didn't bite. Too proud for that. I honestly didn't realize you'd be the one here tonight, he said to Ariana. If I'd known, I might have handed you the project myself. Losing to you? Honestly, it almost feels worth it. Wow. I had thought I was good at spinning bullshit. But Derek? Derek could bottle his and sell it at a premium. Ariana raised a brow. Is that so? She said dryly. Well, I'm flattered. Oh, and about Ryan? I'll be looking into that first thing tomorrow. She said it lightly, but the message underneath was crystal clear. I know what you did. And I'm coming for it. Derek's face twitched. Just a flicker, but enough to betray the sting. Seems like you've got the wrong impression about me, he said to Ariana, voice a little tighter. I was actually hoping we could talk. Really talk. Meanwhile, the rain was starting to come down harder. He glanced toward the curb and spotted Piper standing beneath a hotel awning, phone in hand, looking for Ariana's ride. You didn't drive tonight? He asked, seizing the moment. Let me take you home. I don't know where the guy got his confidence. He'd just gotten verbally bodied in front of half the city's elite, and he still had the audacity to offer her a ride? Ariana's face shifted, cool turning cold. No need, she said flatly. I've got it handled. Derek's eyes flashed, maybe frustration, maybe wounded pride. Either way, he stepped forward and reached for her arm. That did it. You wanna ignore me and run your mouth? Fine. But touch the woman who just saved me from financial ruin? In front of me? Not happening. Like a reflex, I stepped forward, body angled between them. Smooth, fast, instinctive. Ms. Whitmore already said she has arrangements, I said, voice calm but loaded. No need to trouble yourself, Mr. Langford. Ariana blinked in surprise behind me, then, after a beat, I felt her shift closer, stepping subtly behind my shoulder like it was the most natural thing in the world. Derek's face darkened. The smirk was gone. And who the hell are you? He snapped. You think you get a say in this? I'm talking to Ariana, not you. Ah, there it was. The real Derek. Too bad I wasn't in the mood to play nice. Mr. Langford, I said with a smile that didn't touch my eyes, besides having a foul mouth, it seems your hearing isn't too sharp either. She already told you she's fine. Going home alone. Not sure what part of that confuses you, but if you've got time to linger here like a rejected prom date, maybe use it to check into the nearest hospital. Could be a brain issue. Silence. Then. Piper snorted from across the lot. Even Ariana, still behind me, made a quiet sound that might have been a laugh, if not a suppressed choke of approval. And me? I stood tall, soaking in the rain and the satisfaction. Like a knight who just slapped a dragon across the face. Derek looked like he was about to explode. I straightened up, spine locked, chin high, ready for anything. If he so much as breathed on me, I was fully prepared to drop like a sack of bricks. Flat on the ground. Dignity optional, payout essential. You think I'd miss a chance to sue a CEO? 10 grand per rib, easy. I was already mentally rehearsing the fall, left shoulder first, dramatic twist, maybe throw in a groan for effect. Then. Sir, your car. The valet's voice cut through the air like a needle through a balloon. And just like that, the tension died a pitiful death. We all turned. There it was, rolling up to the curb. My battered, busted, one-eyed Buick. The mechanical equivalent of a used Band-Aid. It didn't just ruin my dramatic aura. It torched everyone's. Derek's face twitched. For once, he was too stunned to gloat. Too busy trying to process how the guy who just verbally destroyed him could possibly drive that. Honestly, I almost told the valet he'd gotten the wrong car. My brain waged war, pride on one side, shame on the other. But before I could spiral too far, I felt it. A hand. Sliding into the crook of my arm. Ariana. Cool as ever. Come on, she said lightly, weren't you going to drive me home? I turned. And there she was, resting against me like it was the most natural thing in the world. Not a flinch. Not a wink. Just presence. And Derek? Didn't say a word. Didn't move. He just stood there, jaw clenched, watching as me, in my junkyard Buick glory, walked off with the girl, the win, and the last word. That night, I proved something important. Sometimes, the real power move is punching up with style. I drove in silence for a while, the rain tapping gently on the windshield, Taylor Swift humming softly through the radio. "Miss Whitmore," I finally said, breaking the quiet. "Sorry. I know this isn't exactly the smoothest ride you've ever had." She let out a small laugh. "Not really uncomfortable," she said, voice easy, a little teasing. "I just wish I had a bit more legroom. Other than that, your car's kinda cozy." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry at that. Still, out of basic respect for my loyal, aging car, I felt obligated to help her out. "Check under the seat," I said. "There's a lever, you can slide it back." She leaned forward, fumbling around like a first-time IKEA customer trying to follow pictogram instructions. "Really? I don't see any button." Oof. A pang of humiliation jabbed me in the chest. She probably didn't even realize there were still cars in the world that came with manual seat adjustments. Wordlessly, I pulled over to the side of the road and reached across. "It's this lever," I said, demonstrating. "You pull it, then slide." As I leaned in, the soft scent of her perfume hit me. Something subtle. Sophisticated. Like the fragrance section of a department store on a summer evening, sweet, layered, and just enough to make you forget your own name for a second. I felt her stiffen beside me. Her face flushed a light, unmistakable pink. Probably embarrassed, either for not knowing how it worked or for how close we'd suddenly gotten. I quickly retreated, straightening up like nothing had happened. Face serious. Hands on the wheel. The very picture of a gentleman who absolutely did not just get dizzy from a stranger's perfume. All in a night's work. A thought struck me mid-drive. "So, where exactly am I dropping you off? Back at that apartment complex?" "I don't live there," she said casually. "I was just visiting a friend earlier." Then she gave me an address. "Just take me home. I'll deal with the car tomorrow." That explains a lot, I thought. No wonder I'd never seen her around. Someone like Ariana Whitmore wasn't the type to hang around mid-range apartment garages. She just didn't fit. That memory from earlier flickered back into my head, her heels hitting the pavement, that Bentley emblem gleaming in the low light, the moment I realized just how deep of a hole I was in. I fell quiet again, eyes on the road. Then she laughed. Soft, sudden, and unexpected. I glanced over. "What's funny? You turning back into Cinderella before midnight?" She shook her head, still smiling. "Sorry. I just had this mental image of Derek's face when I got into your car. Couldn't help it." My lips twitched despite myself. "Yeah. That was a moment. Although, next time I try to humble someone, maybe I'll make sure my own dignity survives the process." Even now, I could practically hear my Buick groaning. "Really? I'm standing right here. Defending my poor car's honor." I shot her a glance. "By the way, that pretty boy, he wasn't trying to hit on you, was he?" "He already did," she said flatly, without hesitation. I didn't expect that. And for some reason, something twisted a little in my chest. She went on, more thoughtfully this time. "Our families go way back. Grew up in the same circle. We even studied abroad together for a while." A pause. But I never said yes. I wasn't sure why she was telling me all this. Maybe she was just in a good mood. Or maybe, it was that odd thing people do, where you find yourself saying more than you planned to a stranger, simply because they don't know enough to judge you. So I nodded, said nothing, and just kept driving, while the rain and Taylor Swift filled the space between us. I made a few more light comments just to keep the mood easy, and before long, we pulled up in front of her house. That's when I realized. Apparently, yes, downtown does have villa estates the size of small kingdoms. So much for quiet within, connected without being just a real estate slogan. As I rolled through the gates under the stern gaze of the security staff, I was pretty sure my beat-up Buick had just set a new record, least welcome guest in neighborhood history. Still, I kept it classy. Even hopped out to open the door for her, like a proper gentleman. Ariana stepped down gracefully, heels tapping onto pristine stone. She turned to me, eyes soft. "Thanks again, for everything tonight." "No problem," I said. "Fate brought us together, after all. You ever need another mission covered, you know where to find me. Just, preferably not at the claim center, all right?" She burst out laughing, hand over her mouth, head tilted back. Like a night-blooming flower in full flare, burning bright for one beautiful second in my otherwise gray little life. I slid back behind the wheel, hand resting casually out the window to wave goodbye. But then, she jogged 2 steps closer. "Let's trade contact info," she said. "You never know. I might need you for something else." "Gladly," I grinned. "Next job, I'll give you a discount. Buy 2, get 1 free." We exchanged numbers. Then I watched in the mirror as she disappeared behind that tall, elegant gate. Her world fading smaller and smaller in the rearview. Until all that was left was memory and tail lights in the rain. I finally lit a cigarette. The smoke curled quietly toward the roof. In the seat beside me, her perfume still lingered, soft, warm, impossible to ignore. I looked at my old car. Gave it a pat on the dusty dashboard. And muttered under my breath. "You live on the 3rd floor. I'm 17 stories up. You look up at me. Like we're from 2 different worlds. And tonight, somehow, those worlds met." The next morning, I headed downstairs to get my car. Only to find the garage buzzing. A tow truck was parked in front of Ariana's Bentley, hazard lights blinking. A small crowd had gathered around. And to my utter disbelief, some guy had even set up lighting gear and started filming. My car, my beat-up, one-eyed Buick, was the star of the show. Without missing a beat, I straightened my back, lifted my chin, and walked into the crowd like a returning war hero. "Make some room, folks," I announced. This is the car I crashed." Heads turned. Brows lifted. People stared. And then, Piper spotted me and waved, practically bouncing over. "Hey. Got a sec? Let's go handle the paperwork now." "Sure," I nodded, slipping out my phone and texting my office. "Out doing off-site client work." Big lead. Because hey, technically not a lie. Since neither side disputed fault, the claims process moved fast. Ariana's Bentley got loaded onto the tow truck. My poor Buick stayed behind for what would probably be a very intimate session with a team of mechanics. Outside the damage center, I noticed Piper walking ahead, humming to herself, practically skipping. I jogged to catch up. "Hey," I said, casual. "You, forget something?" She blinked, confused. "Forget what?" I made a slow, deliberate gesture with 2 fingers, rubbing them together in front of her eyes. "The universal sign for money, please. Didn't Ms. Whitmore leave anything for me?" I asked hopefully. Recognition lit up her face. "Oh. Right, she wants you to swing by the office sometime." "What? No envelope? No bonus? No cash stuff thank you card?" I had spent the whole night imagining that reward. Maybe even a handwritten note, to the hero in the Buick. But no. I was being summoned. Summoned. Like a damn intern. My brain instantly flashed to a scene from some drama series. Here's a blank check. Write whatever number you want, and we'll call it even. I imagined it so vividly I almost whispered. How many zeros is too many? Caught in the fantasy, I couldn't help the goofy grin spreading across my face as I followed Piper into the office. Ariana was seated behind her desk, eyes glued to a document. Without even glancing up, she slid a stack of paperwork across to me. Fill this out. Ah, I thought. So there is paperwork before the check. Damn TV lied to me. I sat down, pen in hand, and started filling it out. Name, ID, address. Then it got weird. Really weird. By the third page, they were practically asking for my ancestors' dental records. Miss Whitmore? I said, chewing on the pen cap. What exactly am I filling out here? She didn't answer, just handed over another document. I glanced at the top. Employment contract. And there it was, in bold. Helios Development hereby appoints Mr. Noah, last name, as Department Manager, Design Division. I nearly dropped the pen. This has to be a mistake. I pushed the papers back toward her like they were on fire. Respectfully, I'm flattered, but I'm not that kind of performer. I sell charm, not commitment. Finally, Ariana looked up. She dropped the polite smile. The Ice Queen mask was back. Derek's not going to take last night lightly, she said coolly. We're just being cautious. Officially placing you in this position protects us, and you. Relax, the actual design work will be handled by the team. You just, sit in the chair. I let out a nervous laugh. Ma'am, if clever comebacks counted as credentials, I'd already be running for president. She didn't smile. Didn't blink. I was really starting to suspect she wasn't joking. She didn't even blink. As promised, your bonus. Second page. Still half doubting, I flipped to the back of the contract. And there it was. My annual salary. Gulp. I swallowed so hard it echoed in my chest. Look, money doesn't buy integrity. I'm a man of principle. Truly. But $500,000 a year? I mean, come on. Even my principals have rent to pay. Without hesitation, I grabbed the pen and scribbled my name with the confidence of a man selling his soul at a steep, but fair, discount. I thumped my chest. Miss Whitmore, I'll hand in my resignation by lunch. Won't even miss a minute of the afternoon shift. She gave a small nod of approval. Good. Then tonight, get ready. You're coming with me to a dinner meeting. Later that evening, we stepped into the grand lobby of the Straight Line Hotel. The same doorman from that night gave me a polite nod. I forced a smile in return, though my left eye may have twitched a little. Would it kill them to pick a different venue? We were led into a private dining room. Half the seats were already filled. Lots of suits. Too much cologne. But only one familiar face. Derek. His eyes flicked toward me. A flash of surprise, quickly masked by that tight, fake smile rich people wear when they're internally screaming. Ever the gentleman, he stood to pull out a chair, for Ariana. Ariana, he said smoothly, thought we agreed this was just a small circle gathering. You didn't have to bring staff, it makes things feel so formal. The word staff landed with a thud. Someone else jumped in. Yeah, this was supposed to be a casual catch-up, kind of a class reunion. Ariana, you really need to learn how to take a break. Keep this up, you'll work yourself right out of the dating pool. A few more chuckles followed. Polite. Dismissive. The implication was clear. I wasn't one of them. I wasn't invited. Just a tag-along. Invisible. Exactly where they expected me to be. Ariana didn't bother explaining. She simply looped her arm through mine and said, "Cool as anything. Why so formal? Didn't you see? I brought my boyfriend." Boom. The whole room shifted. Every pair of eyes swiveled to me. Derek froze for half a second. I froze for half a second. Boyfriend? Was that in the script? Clearly not, because no one had handed me a damn script. Derek's expression twisted, from smug disdain to barely contained rage. I turned to Ariana with a grin so wide it could have cracked concrete, eyes silently screaming. "You better be adding hazard pay for this." Someone finally broke the silence. "Oh, Ariana's boyfriend, well that explains it. No wonder he's so handsome." I thought for a second a movie star had wandered in. These people. I swear. Every one of them sounded like they practiced compliments in the mirror before dinner. Ariana casually introduced me around. There was a bank president. A regional CEO. Even a city commissioner. And me? I barely passed for someone's cool uncle at a PTA meeting. Then, as expected, he reappeared. Derek. Carrying half a glass of wine and wearing a face that said I'm totally not here to pick a fight even though I obviously am. He stepped right between us and smiled, crocodile style. "Left in a bit of a rush last night," he said to me, voice pleasant. "Didn't get a chance to say a proper goodbye. By the way, your car? It's got character. Did you drive it over tonight? Here we go." I knew the minute I saw him, it was only a matter of time before he tried something. Just a bunch of grown men in tailored suits, playing chess with beer coasters. I smiled right back. "Mr. Langford, you must be joking. I'm here tonight with Ariana, we're all here to have fun. Who drives to these things?" Then I leaned in, voice just loud enough for the table to hear. "Your years of education might be a sunk cost, but let's not embarrass the whole table on top of it." The room erupted. Laughter bounced off the walls like fireworks. Even the bank president was wiping his eyes. Derek's face flushed red, trying to laugh, but barely keeping it together. He glanced around, clearly itching to fire back, but too many eyes were watching. And for a moment, I stood there in my off-the-rack blazer, feeling like I'd just checkmated a man with $1 million trust fund. Using a borrowed pawn. Everyone at the table knew the truth, even if no one said it out loud. Derek's not-so-secret feelings for Ariana were an open secret. But tonight? The tides had turned. And now that things were getting interesting, half the table started drifting my way. One by one, they came over. Some subtle. Some not. Clinking glasses, throwing compliments, cracking jokes. All of it under the same curious, watching eyes. And Derek? He never took his eyes off me. Like a snake in a tailored suit, just waiting for me to slip. So he could strike and tear me apart with a single well-timed jab. Somehow, I ended up becoming the unofficial center of the table. Me, Noah. Guy with the crumpled blazer and borrowed charm. But keeping that spotlight meant work. I pulled every anecdote from the depths of my brain, childhood blunders, office legends, mild scandals. Anything to keep the momentum up and myself from crashing and burning. Midway through my fourth improvised story, I threw a subtle look toward Ariana, silently pleading for rescue. That's when I realized. She was glowing. Not metaphorically, her cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright from just a little too much wine. At some point, she'd started drinking with nearly everyone at the table, matching their toast sip for sip. And it was working. A pile of business cards sat discreetly beside her plate, and I overheard her casually locking in meetings for the next 2 weeks like it was nothing. So this is what power networking looks like. Behind every glass of wine, a calendar invite. Behind every smile, Another deal lining up. And suddenly, it all clicked. Derek wasn't trailing her like usual. Why? Because she didn't need him to be. I was here tonight, for one reason. To block. To distract. To soak up the pressure and keep Derek busy, so she could work the room behind the curtain. I was the decoy. Honestly? Brilliant. Emotionally draining. Socially exhausting. But brilliant. Still, I was officially running on empty. Just as I was about to fake a phone call and make a break for the hallway, Ariana made her way back around the room and finally, slid into the seat beside me. I exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for an hour. And probably had. "You're flushed," I said, noticing the glow in her cheeks. She gave me a practiced, almost theatrical smile and lightly tugged on my hand. "Time to head out, right? Big meeting tomorrow." I nodded immediately, playing along. "Everyone, let's call it a night. If I don't get her home soon, I'll be sleeping on the balcony." Laughter erupted around the table. Glasses clinked. Someone shouted, "Good luck, Romeo." And just like that, my very first task as a newly minted manager, complete. People began to filter out after us, a few still tipsy, still networking, still pretending it wasn't all for business. Ariana hooked her arm through mine as we exited the hotel lobby. I glanced at her. "Should I call a car?" She shook her head. "Let's walk. I could use the fresh air to walk off the wine." The river breeze met us as we turned onto the jogging path, a soft wind rustling the trees. Ariana pulled her coat tighter around her. "Right," I thought. This is that scene. The one from every K-drama ever made. Where the guy shrugs off his coat, drapes it over the girl's shoulders, and the music swells. I reached up and started unbuttoning mine, got through 2 buttons. Then paused. Wait. Am I getting too into this? I side-eyed her, trying not to be obvious. Moonlight traced the curve of her cheek, highlighting the faint blush of wine in her skin. But deeper in her eyes, under the soft haze, there was something else. Strength. Sharpness. A touch of stubbornness that hadn't faded with the alcohol. And for a second, I thought. If she weren't rich. If I met her just as a person, not a title. Would I go for it? Probably, yeah. I think I would. Then her voice cut in, dry and amused. Well? You gonna give me the jacket or stand there overthinking it? Snapped right back to reality. Right, I muttered, scrambling to pull it off and wrap it around her shoulders like some overeager butler. She said nothing. Just kept walking. But she didn't let go of my arm. "Do you know why I brought you tonight?" she asked suddenly. "Sure," I replied. "I was your distraction decoy, right? Gotta keep the wolves busy while the queen handles business." Ariana chuckled under her breath. "You're pretty sharp." "Of course I am," I said, grinning. "Boss buys me dinner, I make sure to earn it. Besides, didn't feel like a bad deal." She let out a long sigh. One of those deep, tired exhales that had nothing to do with alcohol and everything to do with life. "Everyone sees the surface," she said quietly. "The glamour, the confidence. But no one sees what it costs to keep all that up." I almost blurted out, "You're drunk and getting sentimental." But thankfully, my brain got in front of my mouth and censored the last part. She kept going. "I was born with everything, silver spoon, perfect resume, smooth track. But sitting at the front of the ship just means you're the one most exposed. You see how many people are banking on you, and how many are waiting for you to slip. Just one mistake, one lapse, bam. Someone else shoves you off the edge, and no one even notices the splash." I nodded. The only thing I could do was nod. Then she looked at me again, more curious this time. Do you know why I picked you? Because I'm charming and devastatingly good-looking? She snorted. You're okay. Bit of a reach for me, if we're being honest. I pretended to be wounded. But, she continued, more seriously, you're the only true outsider I know. Smart, but not trying to impress me. You're not obsessed with my name, or my money. Okay, hold on, I cut in, hand raised. Let's not slander me here. If I didn't care about money, I'd have left you in that garage. She whipped her head around, shooting me a mock glare. I held up my hands. Kidding. Totally kidding. I mean, I think I'm just barely worthy of dating up. She rolled her eyes, but didn't let go of my arm. Didn't say anything, either. Just kept walking. Under the soft rustle of leaves. In that strange silence where everything feels a little more honest. And a little less safe. She let out a laugh. Come on, one more round? I shook my head. Better not. You're already a little wobbly. Any more and I'll have to carry you home. She slipped her hand back into the crook of my arm. Aren't you already? Maybe it was the night air. Maybe it was the way she said it. I'd barely touched any alcohol. But I was definitely feeling it now. Eventually, I flagged down a cab and helped her into the back seat. As we pulled away, she nodded off, twice bumping her head lightly against my shoulder. The third time, I reached up, hesitated, then gently eased her head against me, letting it rest there. I told myself it was a safety thing. That I was being professional. Protective. Purely to prevent workplace injury, of course. The city rolled past in ribbons of color and light. Outside, the darkness gathered thick and soft like velvet. And somehow, it all pooled into the curve of her lashes, the faintest shimmer at the edge of her mouth. Like the night had folded itself into her. The longer I looked, the more dangerous it felt. So I looked away. Turned my eyes to the rearview mirror. Where the reflections of two people sat, framed by passing light. Side by side. And oddly, they looked like they fit. The next morning, I marched into Ariana's office, ready to offer my heartfelt concern. You know, see if the wine hangover had knocked her out, maybe sneak in a casual joke or two. But the moment I stepped inside, she looked up. Cold. Professional. Glacial. Do you need something? Her tone could have frozen coffee. I froze in the doorway like a kid caught stealing cookies. Sorry. Thought this was the restroom. Wrong door. I backed out in reverse. Once clear, I went straight to the only person who might offer answers. Piper, who was knee-deep in a stack of folders. Hey, Piper. Question, I whispered. Does Ariana have a twin sister by any chance? She blinked. Huh. You know, like, one who works during the day and one who drinks and flirts at night? She stared at me. Or, hear me out, maybe it's a split personality thing. One's all ice queen CEO, the other's charming and emotionally complex. Piper gave me the deadliest deadpan I'd ever seen. I don't know if she has a twin, she said slowly. But if you keep bothering me, I will hit you so hard your own twin won't recognize you. Message received. I slinked away in silence. This company is weird. Everyone's got mood swings like it's part of the job description. Still, I couldn't help but wonder if someday, I would stride through these halls looking like a polished, certified success story. Confident. Respected. Effortlessly important. Wait. Scratch that. I already look important. I mean, objectively speaking, I'm a damn snack. Still, no illusions. If I was going to make it here, I had to stay focused. Work hard. Make the most of the lucky break my beat-up Buick had literally smashed into existence. For the car. For the chaos. For the slightly bruised but undeniably bright future. Let's go. I started going around, asking coworkers if there was anything I could help with. Actually help with. Downloaded all the necessary software. Ordered a pile of professional books online. Every drop of academic failure I once laughed off now came back as tears in the corner of my eyes. But if someone like Ariana, born into wealth, raised in boardrooms, was still grinding like this every day, who the hell was I to coast? Time flew. 3 months passed in a blur. In that time, I stuck to Ariana like a shadow. Networking dinners, business banquets, 8 a.m. meetings, midnight calls. I survived it all. Clumsy at first, sure. I was a complete outsider to this world. But after years of selling real estate, I'd built up some instincts. And with enough grit, stress, and coffee-fueled desperation, I graduated from utter fraud to barely competent beginner. While studying industry rules, I also got my hands dirty with development logistics, regulatory filing, permits, land use prep. I was learning. And Ariana? She was still Ariana. Cold 1 minute, casually warm the next. But I'd stopped trying to make sense of her moods. If she was in a good one, I chatted. If she was in a bad one, I zipped it. Easy math. Eventually, our biggest milestone came. The Atlas City Center project wrapped its early-stage prep, and the groundbreaking ceremony was set. It was grand. Not just, cut the ribbon, grand. We're talking televised coverage, major corporate partners, high-profile stakeholders, even a few city officials you usually only see during election season. And me? Somehow, after 3 months of faking it till I made it. After 1 accident, 1 contract, and 100 late-night takeout boxes, I'd earned enough presents to belong. Maybe not fully belong, but at least enough to walk the floor in a tailored suit, shake hands without stammering, and smile like I had every right to be there. Honestly, it almost felt like I'd pulled off the greatest con of my life. Or maybe I was finally becoming the guy I pretended to be. Tonight, I didn't just shake hands with all sorts of industry heavyweights. I also met Ariana's father, the chairman himself, Edward Whitmore. The evening banquet was a more private affair, mostly Helios Development's internal team and key partners. Chairman Whitmore was dressed almost exactly like Mr. Whitaker had been at our first dinner. Same tailored linen suit, same understated elegance. Maybe their whole circle followed an unspoken uniform policy once they hit a certain tax bracket. Seeing him stirred a familiar memory. That sly old fox, Whitaker. If not for him, I wouldn't even be here tonight. I had half a mind to track him down and thank him properly. With all the industry reading I'd crammed into my head these past few months, I might even survive a real conversation with him now, without spilling all my secrets in 3 sentences. And then there was Derek. Ah, dear Derek. Honestly, if I was going down the list of people to thank, he might deserve a spot. If he hadn't been such a flaming, ego-drenched speed bump, I'd have never had the chance to speak at that first meeting. Never gotten Ariana's attention. Never become anything more than a forgettable extra. Look at me, I thought. So gracious. So mature. And right as I was basking in my own nobility, boom. There he was. Derek. God. Why did I open my mouth? Even mentally? Turns out, even inner monologues can summon your nemesis. With the chairman present, of course, I couldn't afford to stir anything up. Tonight had to be clean. Polished. Politics only. Ariana was seated at the main table, across from Derek. From afar, I couldn't quite read her expression. She looked composed, as always. But I'd been around her long enough to notice the tension in her shoulders. Whatever her mood was tonight, one thing was clear. This party wasn't over yet. Chairman Edward Whitmore opened the dinner with a round of perfectly rehearsed remarks. He thanked the entire company for their collective efforts, saying the grand groundbreaking ceremony that took place today was a result of everyone's hard work. Then came the gratitude toward our strategic partners. The usual gestures of alliance and mutual respect, followed by a vision of shared progress and joint prosperity. And finally, the announcement. Helios Development and Suncrest Group would officially enter a strategic partnership, co-developing the Atlas City Center project. Cue applause. Cue champagne glasses lifted. Cue my eye twitch. Derek, of course, stood and gave a passionate little speech as Suncrest's representative. He hit all the right notes: ambition, synergy, bright futures. A textbook performance. And, unfortunately, the signal that the partnership was real. As I watched him, standing tall with that smug glint in his eye, I couldn't help but think. 3 months. 3 months of grinding, running on fumes, learning on the fly. And in the end? One signed agreement between boardroom titans. And suddenly we're all smiling, shaking hands, pretending none of that tension ever happened. We've come full circle. Turns out, in this world, no one truly wins alone. Not even your enemies. God, rich people really do know how to throw a plot twist. I glanced toward Ariana. Her expression was neutral, face turned just enough to avoid even catching Derek in her peripheral vision. Clearly, tonight we were dealing with cold mode Ariana. The banquet rolled on, noisy and bright. Laughter, deals being hinted at in whispers, old friends toasting, interns pretending they weren't overwhelmed. I drifted between tables with co-workers, nibbling my way through the dessert lineup like a sugar-seeking missile. Piper was practically inhaling a Boston lobster tail, cheeks full, eyes gleaming. Tonight's setup beats the year-end party by a mile, she mumbled around the shellfish. I watched in silent agony as she reached over and swiped the last abalone from the tray right in front of me. She smirked. What's wrong? Don't like the food, or are you just full from watching rich people be rich? I shot her a look and grabbed a slice of strawberry cake. Honestly, I just don't think dessert's sweet enough to shut your mouth. She grinned, unbothered, and held up her wine glass in a mock toast. To you, manager. King of comebacks and last desserts. As the toasts began, everyone rose to their feet. Crystal glasses clinked softly one after another. And for a brief moment, the entire dining room sparkled with polite laughter and the music of glass tapping glass. I followed behind Piper. Doing the customary rounds, time to offer our respects to the head table, one by one. When it was my turn, Ariana turned to her father and said smoothly, "Dad, this is Noah, the one I told you about." Edward Whitmore gave me the same warm, diplomatic smile he'd worn all evening. He raised his glass and clinked it gently against mine. "Noah, I've heard about you from Ariana. You may be new, but you're smart and capable. With the upcoming merger project, I hope you'll give her and Derek your full support." I nodded, steady. "Of course. I'll do my best to support the team and live up to your expectations." Then I took a small, respectful sip of the wine. Edward gave an approving nod before turning his attention to the next guest. The whole toast sequence felt like a kind of soft power carousel. People circling the high table, one courteous exchange at a time. The mood growing more relaxed with every pass. When I reached Derek, I instinctively braced myself. But he only leaned in and said quietly, "Thanks, Noah. Keep up the good work." Huh. I'd expected a jab, or at least some thinly veiled sarcasm. But I guess even Derek knew when to behave, with the chairman present and all. Still, I played it safe. "Congratulations, I said with a faint smile. When I made it back to Ariana. Her cheeks were slightly flushed, and her gaze had softened under the wine. There was a sparkle there, hazy but alert, like she'd been watching all along. I couldn't help feeling a little tense. For a moment, I worried she might slip her arm through mine again. Pull me into the spotlight, right there in front of everyone. But she didn't. She just gave me a faint nod, her voice low and even. I knew I wasn't wrong about you. Keep up the good work. I straightened my shoulders a little. Don't worry, Miss Whitmore. You gave me a chance, I won't waste it. As the evening wore on, glasses clinked, voices rose, and the room grew comfortably loud. Plates were cleared, dessert circled, and the buzz of contented guests filled the air. Who said a crowd's joy always made one feel alone? With Piper in my ear the whole time, chattering endlessly, it was more like a full sensory assault. She swirled the wine in her glass, took a thoughtful sip. This wine's amazing. That sharp bite? Totally opens up the appetite. I shot her a look. She ignored it and kept talking. You know what? You should eat more uni. I clutched my chest theatrically. My kidneys are fine, thank you. But you, don't start getting ideas about me. She rolled her eyes so hard they practically made a sound. Uni doesn't help your kidneys, you idiot. That was my cue. I excused myself and slipped outside for some air, and a smoke. As I exhaled the first drag, my gaze wandered. And once again, the door attendant gave me that polite nod and practiced smile. Right. Straight Line Hotel. Again. I was about to lose myself in the view when I heard someone call my name. I turned. Ariana stood a few paces away, her coat pulled tight around her frame. I grinned. Don't tell me you need my jacket again. She gave a small smile, lips barely moving. It was getting stuffy in there. I just needed some air. The breeze stirred. And for a moment, silence settled between us. What is it? She asked suddenly. Thinking about the partnership? Me? No way. I'm just a small-time employee, being able to survive in this company is enough. She exhaled lightly. I only found out recently too. After all, it was my father's decision. A lot of things aren't as simple as they seem. I chuckled, adopting my usual easygoing tone. Come on, Miss Whitmore, you don't have to explain anything to me. I follow the money, not the people. Company says jump, I ask how high. She looked at me for a beat. Sometimes, I really envy you. You always seem so unbothered. I blurted out before I could stop myself, so which version of you is this right now? What? Nothing. Wine's just messing with my head. She ignored it. I told my father about you. I know. He mentioned it. Thanks for putting in a good word. She let out a sigh, soft but so sudden, it made my heart skip a beat. I know you're trying. But some things, they don't really have an endpoint. I gave a weak smile, trying to play it off. Yeah, like the sky and the earth, always miles apart. She shook her head slowly. You'll figure it out. Eventually. Then, tugging her coat tighter, she added. I'm freezing. I'm heading in. And just like that, she left me standing there, again not quite sure what just happened. Between Piper and Ariana, I felt like I was always one line behind, one meaning short. Whatever they were trying to tell me, it hadn't fully landed yet. A few days later, I received a notice from HR, a reassignment. Thanks to my early involvement and performance in the Atlas City Center project, I was being transferred to help launch a new development in another city. The pay was better. The title was higher. And Ariana was farther away. I'd gone from a rookie to, well, a rookie whose voice carried a little weight. At business dinners now, someone else would do the introductions. No more sweating through dirty jokes or digging through my brain for clever conversation starters. But sometimes, I'd wonder. Was someone else there now, stepping in when Ariana needed a drink shield? Was anyone still taking off their coat when she felt cold? The new project took off quickly, and my term kept extending. Soon, I was promoted to Deputy General Manager of the branch office. On the day we wrapped the project, I stood there staring at the site, what was once bare dirt now rising steel. The seed I planted had finally broken ground. I posted a photo on Instagram. Aside from a few colleagues, most of the comments came from old friends, half real, half sarcastic. Look at you now. Corporate king. Finally made it, huh? And then, quietly, Ariana liked the post. I couldn't tell if it was for the work. Or for me. Maybe for neither. I returned to HQ a few times after that. I saw Ariana once or twice in passing. Every time Piper saw me, she looked stunned. You're like, a real adult now. Scary. I told her to stay focused. Good looks don't need a poetic pitch. Ariana glanced sideways from her office as I passed by, and for a second, my heart skipped. But when I stepped into her office, she simply looked up and asked coolly. Settling in okay? I wanted to say, I can handle any challenge, just not your personality shifts. But all that came out was, hard work is a habit for me. She let out a soft laugh. God, it was beautiful. Then she added, the company's overseas expansion plan has been finalized. Would you be interested in joining the team? Overseas? Was that a promotion, or exile? My thoughts raced. I didn't know how to respond. This time, we'll be working with Suncrest Group again. Derek's connections there make things easier. You two going together? I blurted. More or less. There's a lot to coordinate early on. Even someone as thick-skinned as I am couldn't help the tightness creeping into my face. Well, best of luck, I forced a smile. Powerhouse Alliance. I get it. I stood up, ready to leave. I actually thought, she started, but then paused. Finally, she waved it off. Noah, she said just as I reached the door, you know what the problem is with smart people? I didn't turn back. I just kept walking. Back on the project site, I wasn't sure when exactly it happened. But somehow, I'd turned into a workaholic. First one in. Last one out. If it hadn't been for my college buddy Jake dragging me out for dinner, I might have actually died on the job without even noticing. I thought it was just going to be the two of us grabbing Korean barbecue. But he showed up with his girlfriend. Wow. You invited me to dinner and brought me to your date. That's friendship, huh? I pointed at the towering pile of rebar and concrete across the street. That's my site. Jake looked impressed. Damn. That's a lot of brick to carry up there. I shook out my tailored blazer. I don't carry anything. Office work, my guy. He nearly dropped his beer in shock, then clinked bottles with me. I don't know why, but my buzz started to fade, and something in my head just clicked. I know you're working hard, Ariana had said. But some things have no end. Jake gave me a friendly slap on the back. Out of the 6 of us in the dorm, you were always the smartest. But you know what the biggest flaw in smart people is? Suddenly, I felt every hair on my arm stand up. This drunk bastard, was he sent by God or something? Smart people lack courage. Always overthinking. Always hesitating. And just like that, a flood of images crashed into me. Ariana's hand on my arm. Her head resting on my shoulder. The way she shivered when I didn't give her my jacket. Her eyes that night, the way she looked at me. And her final words. You know what the problem is with smart people? I jumped to my feet. Jake, you're absolutely king right. Tonight, I'm gonna shoot for the damn stars. I didn't wait. Grabbed my coat and bolted. As I ran down the street, I shouted back. Put it on my tab, I owe you 10 dinners. I jumped in a cab and raced to the airport, catching the last flight across 400 miles. All through the night, heart pounding with every mile closing in. At 11 p.m., I finally got through to Piper. What's Ariana's schedule tomorrow? There was a pause on the line, like she'd just woken up. Noah? What the hell, what's going on? No time. Just tell me, where is she tomorrow? Quick. She let out a sigh, half annoyed, half knowing. You're late. She's on a morning flight, 3-month overseas pre-expansion. I nearly dropped the phone. God damn it, Jake. Why didn't you talk some sense into me earlier? I took a deep breath. Is there anything you can do to help me? On the other end, Piper chuckled. 8 a.m. sharp. I'll stall her, 5 minutes. Max. You're a saint. I owe you, hell, Ariana owes you. Go get her, idiot, she said with a smirk in her voice. Run. At exactly 8:10 a.m., Ariana's sleek black Bentley rolled out of the underground garage, just about to merge onto the road. And then, screech. A beat-up old Buick came skidding out of nowhere and blocked her path. Derek leaned out the driver's side window, fuming. Are you insane? Learn how to drive. I ignored him completely. Heart thundering, I jogged around the car, stopping just behind the Bentley. I tapped gently on her window. Miss Whitmore, I said, breathless, I've made up my mind. I want to go with you. The window rolled down. Ariana's eyes met mine, cool and unreadable, with the faintest trace of curiosity. You're sure about that? I'm sure, I said, standing tall. Miss Whitmore, the thrill of the climb isn't just in reaching the summit. It's in who you climb it with. And we're the perfect team. I believe I'm the one best suited to take care of you. My heart was pounding so loud, I could barely hear my own words. Derek looked like he was about to explode. Jaw unhinged, nearly slamming into the steering wheel. Piper peeked out from the passenger seat of his car, mouthing silently at me, "You're amazing." Ariana stared at me for a long beat, expression unreadable. Then she said, cool and clear, "You have one day. Be on the next flight, on time." I snapped to attention. "Yes, ma'am. But if I may, let me drive you to the airport. I've got some personal matters to report." The sun glinted off the Bentley's chrome door handle. And with a soft click, the back door swung open. A pair of elegant heels stepped out, sharp and poised. Ariana stood with her arms crossed, a wry smile playing on her lips. "No being late. You have my word, Miss Whitmore. With my lightning-fast driving skills, I'll get you there right on time." She laughed, light, warm, and completely disarming. Like spring cracking through the ice. Then, without missing a beat, she slipped into my passenger seat, adjusted the settings like she'd done it 100 times, and said, "Well? What are you waiting for?" I swung into the driver's seat, head high, heart loud, grin uncontrollable. "Let's go, little beast," I said to my beat-up car like it was a warhorse. "Time to fly."